Hi, this is Allie of the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today we are doing part 2 of Self-Love 101, and today the theme is going to be thoughts, feelings, and intuition. So what we talked about in the last video was just a kind of like super intro to what I believe is kind of the most important thing to understand about self-love before you even get started, which is what self-love actually is. And so what we talked about last time was that self-love is simply you coming back to your center, to your core, to your part of your being that's always been and will always be, and that is perfect and flawless and beautiful and is love. And then we also talked about how self-love is not you becoming this selfish, self-involved person who doesn't give a crap about anybody and doesn't take care of yourself and doesn't, just kind of like sits on the couch and does nothing. And, you know, we talked about how that is not self-love, because that's not really you acting from a place of love. That's not you really acting from the place of who you truly are. And so, like we said, right, because you coming back to self-love is you coming back to your truth. And at your truth and at your core, you are love. Okay? So the first step in the process of really kind of like remembering how to love yourself and how to nourish yourself and how to act and live from a place of self-love, I believe starts with your thoughts, your feelings, and how that ties into your intuition. And so what I mean by this is that I believe the first steps to coming to a place where you start to live from self-love and act from self-love is for you first to just acknowledge and accept and embrace your thoughts and your feelings. So I believe that most of us walk around in a kind of continual state of berating ourselves for how we feel, berating ourselves for what we think, and thinking and feeling like we should be better, that we should have different feelings, that we should have different thoughts. So for instance, if you're feeling tired, you might be like, oh, like, man, like, what's wrong with me for feeling so tired all the time? Or if you feel like you don't like somebody, you probably sit there and like, first you consider all the reasons why you don't like them, and you have this whole big thing in your head, but then you're just like, oh man, I'm such a terrible person for not liking them. Or, like, and I just think that this kind of can go on and on and on, that we're just like constantly not okay with how we feel, and we're not okay with how we think. We really believe that we should be feeling a different way and should be thinking another way. And I think that this is like a fundamental level of self-rejection. And obviously living from a place of rejecting yourself, rejecting how you feel, rejecting what you think, rejecting what is, current reality for you in your mind is absolute, fundamental rejection of who you are and the experience that you're having here on Earth right now. And again, like I kind of mentioned in the last video, which I'll put a link to in the description if you haven't seen it, is that we need, like, in order to step into a place of self-love, you are stepping out of being in a place of rejecting yourself. And I think that, we can talk about, love your body. We can talk about love your personality. We can talk about love all of these things about yourself. But I think fundamentally, if you are at a level where you're rejecting your thoughts and rejecting your feelings, you're never going to be able to get to a place of loving your body and loving your reality and loving those around you, because you're fundamentally rejecting yourself. Okay? So the first step in the path towards self-love is understanding what self-love is, and stop being afraid that it's going to make you this terrible person who doesn't give a crap about anybody or yourself. Okay? Second step is to just first acknowledge that how you feel is how you feel. First acknowledge what you're thinking is what you're thinking. And to just give yourself a break, even if it's just for 1 second, that you don't have to change that. You don't have to be different. You don't have to move on. You don't have to have better thoughts. You don't have to have better feelings. This is where you are right now. This is how you feel. This is what you think. And it's good. It's okay. It's part of life. Okay? So just getting to that place where you're just allowing yourself to think and to feel what you think and you feel here in this moment, at this point in your life, that is going to, first of all, when you actually do that, you're going to feel a huge weight lift off your shoulders. Because, like I said, like that fundamental level of rejecting yourself is huge. And so many of us walk around with it, and, you know, and it's like a normal part of society that we don't even realize the weight that it causes, and the stress and the strain and the just terrible feelings of separation and pulling yourself apart in two different directions it causes to reject how you think and how you feel. And then how this ties into your intuition is, like I've spoken about in many other videos, is that your thoughts and your feelings, so, you know, we've definitely talked a lot about negative emotions and negative feelings and negative thoughts, and how they're really not something to be afraid of and not something to run away from, but instead something to accept and embrace, because they are there to lead you back to your center. All of your thoughts, all of your feelings are there for a good reason, okay? So you can't think wrong, and you can't feel wrong, and you can't think in a bad way, and you can't feel in a bad way. All of it is only going to be detrimental to you if you're rejecting it, and you're resisting it, and you're pushing it away. If you were to embrace it, if you were to love it, if you were to just accept, okay, maybe I'm in this state of depression, maybe I'm in this state of judgment, maybe I'm thinking all these terrible negative things about everybody and myself, and I'm just not going to reject myself in that right now, right? I'm just going to accept it. I'm just going to allow it to be. And maybe I feel sad, and maybe I feel pain, and maybe I feel depression, and maybe I feel anger, and I feel all these things that I feel like I shouldn't be feeling. Just for right now, I'm not going to reject it. I'm just going to accept it and allow it and embrace that this is just a part of who I am in my experience right now. The more you can do that, the more those thoughts, those feelings, those states of being are going to start to reveal themselves to you as what they truly are, which is always a message for you. It's always a blessing. It's always a gift. It's always a part of your intuition. Okay, so like for example, pretend you have this job that you really hate. You just really don't like this job, and you really feel like you don't want to go to this job, and you resent everyone at your job, and you resent yourself while you're there, and you find that you're really, you know, judgmental and angry and like in a bad way the whole time you're there, and you feel guilty for thinking all these things, and you feel bad for not wanting to go, and you feel like you should have a better attitude, and you should be more grateful, and you should be all of these things. What I'm saying is, instead of rejecting yourself for how you feel, and instead of rejecting yourself for what you think, just for today, say, okay, I just accept I don't want to do this job. I don't have positive feelings when I'm there. I have negative feelings. I have negative thoughts. This is my reality. So first, like, wow, right? When you really just give yourself permission to feel and think how you think, it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to feel a lot better. And then second thing is just say, okay, now in this negative feelings, in these negative thoughts, what is my center point trying to tell me? What is my intuition trying to tell me? And then just give yourself a break. Because the thing is, when you stop rejecting your feelings, when you stop rejecting your emotions, and you stop rejecting your thoughts, you're going to hear what your intuition is trying to tell you. You're going to hear what your center point is trying to tell you. Maybe it is that you need to change your perspective. Maybe your intuition is telling you that, you know, you can sit here and look at your job like it's this big, awful burden, and that you hate everyone and blah, 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 and you can choose to perceive it that way. Or your intuition may be telling you that, you know, you have the choice to perceive it in another way, that life is simply neutral and you get to paint it however you want to paint it. Or perhaps your intuition is telling you that, you know, you have these negative feelings, you have these negative thoughts about this job because it's not the job for you. And that's not because you're not good, or you're not supposed to, or you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, or whatever. It's like, you know, everyone has a path, and everyone has something they're meant to be doing here, and sometimes we get off track, and our negative emotions are there to tell us that, like, hey, this isn't the thing for you. And if you were to just accept that you feel negative about it, and accept that you have these bad thoughts about it, you may be able to get the intuitive hit that, like, okay, it's not the job's fault, and it's not my fault, we're just not a match for each other, and I'm meant to go go and do something else, and someone else is meant to have this job. And then everybody plays and everybody wins. Okay? So step 1, understanding. Self-love is simply you returning to who you are, and it doesn't make you a lazy person who never does anything for anybody else. Step 2, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, you're allowed to have them. They're fine. Accept them. Don't reject them. Don't run away from them. Don't tell yourself you should think and feel a different way. Accept that this is how you think and you feel, and then make room for your intuition to start speaking to you. Okay? So that's Self-Love 101, Part 2. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, leave them down below. And yeah, we'll see you next time.